out. So.
You're sideways, Russ.
All right, I think we are live on Facebook, guys. So, all righty, everybody, thank you for joining us. Mark Wayner with Champions Real Estate Team at Berkshire Hathaway Home Service Ambassador Real Estate Company. Thank you for joining us for our Talking Real Estate weekly segment of kind of what's going on in the marketplace. So we had a very active week. I'll pull up the diagram here of our little chart that we go over each week here. As we see, we had 488 new listings come on the online or on market this last week. That is actually down a little bit from the previous week. We had 251 new contracts written. That is up 100 from the previous week, which is a pretty significant jump. And then sold properties are up by about 18 from the week prior. So kind of taking a good 30,000 foot view look at the market here. With the new contracts, I think with the state kind of opening up a little bit more, opening the businesses. I know myself, I've had clients and stuff reaching out, starting to look at more houses actually in person and getting ready to rock and roll out there in the marketplace and seeing what is available. So what we're looking at is we're trying to get, obviously more homes on the market, still kind of in the seller's market aspect of it. We are seeing, talking to our mastermind groups here at Berkshire Hathaway, we are seeing, multiple offers up in the 300s, the 300 price point. What we're seeing, ultimately, just in general is just the new construction is still pretty active, but not necessarily able to keep up with the demand with the listings out there. So that's one of the things we're taking a look at as we go through. Last year in 2019, the best month for pendings was May. And we are basically on track to meet that, if not exceed that. So when we take a look at what the COVID-19 has kind of done to the real estate market, it really hasn't affected us from a volume standpoint and transactional standpoint. The price point's actually gone up a little bit on the average price point, average home sold price in Omaha. So, I think the inclination that some people were sitting on the sidelines is kind of a misnomer. There's still a lot of activity. As we can see, we had 100 more contracts written this week than we did the prior week. So I think a lot of people are out there getting after it. And ultimately, that's the buyers that are serious. They're ready to write offers. They're ready to get serious about it and compete in the competition rather than just participating. I think that's one thing when I'm, coaching a hockey team and stuff like that, is that I tell my players, and then ultimately when I'm working with my clients, do we want to compete in the competition or do we just want to participate? I think a lot of people now are starting to compete in the marketplace, not just going out looking at houses, kind of for the fun of it, which it is fun. I'm getting out there and taking a look at the houses. So I'll get off of this page here. Stop sharing that there. So as always, we're on Facebook Live. So if you have any questions, comments, please comment. Jeff will kind of keep track of any comments that come in or questions that we have. And as well as you're watching this video later, if you comment on it, we'll keep an eye on it. And answer any questions that you may have. So I guess introducing our guest panel as we come through here. So we have Russ Williams, who joins us every week from Arbor Bank. He'll kind of touch on the mortgage industry here a little later shortly. And then Jeff Peterson with the Champions Real Estate Team. Rich Howdle is on as well. His daughter is taking some tests as well. So they kind of had to, go on the picture instead of live. And then we have Jim Stenger from Radon Pros, who we'll talk to just a couple minutes from here, talking about the radon and how it kind of gets involved in a real estate transaction. And then ultimately, not even in a real estate transaction, we were just talking a little before this, Jim and I, that it's still a very serious health concern, that there's not, the funding out there to make people aware of it, but it's not something you just worry about when you buy or sell real estate. It's something that, keeping your family safe, your personal safety and things of that sort. But yeah, so I guess with the market, we'll touch the base with Russ from Arbor Bank and kind of get an idea what the mortgage rates are doing. I hear that they're kind of still very low in that regard. So kind of just get a little more insider view from the industry expert, right? You're on mute, Russ.
There we go. Hi, everybody. Mortgage rates are still very strong. We're sitting just above 50-year lows for mortgage rates. which means your borrowing power is as strong now as it has ever been, at least in the last 50 years. And in the event rates rise, your borrowing power could go down. So there's no better time than today to lock in your interest rate and find a home to purchase. To kind of piggyback on what Mark had said a moment ago, we also are seeing lots of multiple offer situations. So it's important that whoever you're using for lending is very familiar with how to work with your realtors. There's some great ones on the call here to make sure that offer, the financing, is going to support your efforts to win that bid and go in as clean as possible. So Russ Williams from Arbor Bank. Thanks.
And Russ helps our clients out a lot as well. I think when like he mentioned, when we do get into multiple offer situations, having somebody in your corner that's, it's kind of an expert in all different things that you can kind of from the mortgage industry. But the one thing I like is that I've had clients that are using Russ, and he has no problem giving the listing agent, the agent working for the seller, give them a call and talk. We can give out confidential information, but basically, they're a strong borrower. They have, all their documents in place. So basically all we need to have is a house, to get an appraisal done. And then we're moving forward. Cause I think that's something that with the COVID-19 thing going on, and, that some closing days were pushed back a little bit with the amount of appraisals with the low interest rates and refinances and stuff like that. But that's something that, Russ does, gives that other listing agent a call and just talks about your purchasing power to basically move forward and close that transaction in a timely manner through that process of it. But yeah, so like you said, interest rates are crazy low right now. So as interest rates, if they go up by 1%, that can affect your purchasing power by about 10%. So every 1% it goes up or down, it increases or decreases your purchasing power by 10%. So as you kind of move up in the price points, that kind of is a big significant change in that purchasing power. So but yeah, appreciate the input on the rates on it. So I think they're kind of right around that low threes where we're sitting at, and credit scores, obviously those kind of increased a little bit, that limit from there. So it's just making sure if you are thinking about buying or selling in the next, the next 6 months, year, get in touch with us so we can kind of help you and get a game plan going on, and sit down with Russ. And I think some people, they wait till right when they're ready to buy, and then they get kind of all the ducks in a row at one time. So from that aspect of it, get ahead of the game. So without further ado, kind of introduce Jim Stenger with Radon Pros. So they're a locally owned company here in Omaha. They started in 2006. So they've been around the community a while. I believe they've done over about 7,500 when I looked on their website. Mitigation systems, and he can correct me if I'm wrong. But I got a PowerPoint presentation. Jim, want to introduce yourself, or if there's anything you want to add on there, and I can pull up the make sure you get you unmuted here. There you go. And while you chat, I can kind of pull up your PowerPoint presentation.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Mark. Yeah, I'm Jim Stenger with Radon Pros. We've been around for about 14 years, and Mark, you're correct. We typically do about 500 to 700 mitigations a year, besides testing. And really here today to kind of talk to you a little bit about radon in real estate. And as Mark had mentioned earlier, obviously radon is there whether it's involved in real estate or not, and it's really an educational thing. And talking with real estate agents over the years, a lot of times it's not something that real estate agents, number one, feel comfortable doing. Talking to buyers, sellers about radon, because a lot of times it is a roadblock in negotiations for real estate transactions. So hopefully today I can provide a little bit of information about radon and how you can overcome some of those roadblocks. So if you want to go to the next screen, Mark, would be great. Okay, so radon in Nebraska and this Iowa area here, I listed some of the different counties, and this is information from the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services. So from a testing perspective, what I always tell people when they say, what are my chances of having radon in a home or a building? When you look at the different counties surrounding us, ballpark, the average is around 60% of the time. When the homes are tested, it will test at an elevated level. Okay, and what the elevated level is the EPA does recommend mitigation in any home or property that is tested, that tests above 4.0 picocuries per liter or higher. Okay, if you want to go to the next screen, Mark, would be great. Okay, so so really, what is radon and why is it a concern? In layman's term, what radon is there's uranium in the soil, and as uranium decays, one of the byproducts is radon gas. Radon, you can't smell it, you can't see it, you can't taste it. It does permeate up through the soil and it gets trapped in homes and buildings. Okay. And as one of the things about radon is that it is a carcinogenic. So it's similar to like smoking.
Oh, are we losing? Jim, you there? Can you guys hear him? Jeff? I think we might have lost him. Okay. Because I can kind of follow up on that with radon gas, like he was saying, is a carcinogenic that basically comes up, from the uranium decaying, coming up through there. So it's one of those that I tell my clients that there's radon present in every house. It's just to what extent. And I do teach real estate continuing education classes, and I teach a 3-hour class on radon to other agents in that regard. So it's one of those that I feel, is very important. It's in every house. It's just to what extent. So I look at it from personally, if I can basically mitigate it and eliminate one health risk for my family in their home, I feel it's well worth it. And typically, and I mean, Jim jumps back on here. It's kind of one of those that it looks at average cost is anywhere from $600 to $1,200 for a mitigation system. So it's kind of one of those that it's a matter of, or the pipe and the stack have to run. So what it does is essentially how a mitigation system works is basically have a 3-inch PVC pipe goes into the concrete slab and basically creates a low pressure system where gas goes to the path of least resistance. And then that gas, the radon gas, travels underneath the slab of concrete, basically goes up through the pipe, and it's essentially dilutes into the atmosphere as it leaves your property. As we go through, so go on the next slide. So when you're doing a location of the fan, it's one of those that you can, when you're driving around and looking at houses, you can see on the side of a house, if you see kind of a saucer shaped dish, basically what that is that's the mitigation fan. And then you see the 3-inch PVC pipe going out. So now if you're building a new construction home, you can plumb that already into the house. So that's one of my suggestions is plumb it. If you want to test it later, you can, and add the fan. And then that basically you don't have this 3-inch white PVC pipe kind of sticking out the side of your house as you go through. So anything else on there? So, ultimately it's one of those when we're working, buying and selling homes, that's something that comes up, that if you put it in the contract, then you can negotiate on the buyer or the seller, who's going to pay for that mitigation system through there. So I'm going to jump and see if he has jumped back on yet. So, yeah, so with the radon, I think I lost you here. Yeah, so Nebraska is typically one of the higher states in that has higher for radon as we go through here. So. EPA documents. So there are some other, the government entities that do have the, the Citizens Guide, Real Estate Guide, Consumer Guide of kind of how to fix radon. But it is one of those things. And some people ask, I've heard this in clients I've worked with, other agents, well, it's just a myth. Does it really exist? How do you know that you actually have, how do you know it was radon that basically was coming? So it's, you increase your chances of that lung cancer, if you're a smoker, even if you're not a smoker, you can still get it. And that's exposure over long periods of time. The thing, I asked, how do they know that it's potentially radon gas? Well, they looked at it when they do an autopsy and they see the radiation burn marks on the lungs. Whereas, when you're in the smoking, you don't have that radiation burn marks. So that's one way they can differentiate between, smoking, causing the lung cancer versus radon causing the lung cancer. So looks like Jim's jumping back on with us. Get him on here. So you jump in. Jim, you with us? You're on mute. Hold on. Unmute. Hold on.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Yep, sorry about that. My PC rebooted and it never happened before, so I do apologize.
It's the time we live in with the technologies we're all getting used to. No worries. Yeah, I kind of covered a little bit. Just kind of basically, I talked about how radon gas is, in every home, regardless
Sure.
of any.
Yep.
I tell my clients that, it's one of those things that, you might as well just put the mitigation system in sometimes instead of paying to test it. Cause no level of radon is a safe level.
Correct.
The EPA has that number of 4.0, but it's not necessarily safe at 2. It's definitely not safe above 4.0. So some of those things I tell my clients, save the $100, put that towards a mitigation system.
Sure.
Do that. So yeah, I guess if there's anything you wanted to.
Yeah, let me just kind of just look here and kind of really just kind of touch on but I think you might have even touched on it. The reason why it is brought up during real estate transactions is because of the fact that it is on the seller disclosure statement and stuff. And so it is really the job of agents to educate buyers and sellers, of what radon is and the dangers of radon. And then obviously let them make the decision whether or not to test. And if they do test, then to mitigate. So in the state of Nebraska, it's not a requirement. There are some states that do require you to test and mitigate if needed, but in the state of Nebraska, it is still optional. And then just a little bit of information from a mitigation standpoint is that the average mitigation system when talking to customers is typically around $1,000, give or take a couple $100 each way. And what's going to really determine the pricing is radon levels and where we can actually get suction points and then in the home and then get it vented to the exterior of the home. So there's quite a few different factors involved in that, but in layman's terms, it's a simple process that's actually a little bit complicated, but obviously money means a lot to everybody, and one person, $900 might not be a lot, but somebody else it is. But of all of the mitigation systems that we do quote, very few of them are we not able to get to below the 4.0 a level. But there are some that have different types of HVAC systems and stuff that are very difficult. But it is a problem out there, but it's a simple solution to test and mitigate. And during the real estate transaction, it is something that obviously is a good time to actually test and do that.
Yeah, I think typically just in a normal course of business and throughout your day, no one thinks about it. It's out of sight, out of mind.
Absolutely.
Especially when you're, if you built a house 20 years ago, you never thought about it, you haven't sold it, and you just lived there, and it's out of sight, out of mind. You don't know anything about it. And like you said, when we touched before we even went live, that there's not a lot of funding and education to let people know about that risk from radon. It's, I just built a house, my family, we just built a house, and I plumbed it to put in, the stack. And I talked about that while you were offline. When you're new construction home, you can run that PVC pipe up through the center of the house or up through the duct, like next to the flue and that stuff like that. So you can run out. So it's not outside the house.
Yes, and Martin, sorry to interrupt you, but during new construction today, they are required to run a passive system.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
Yeah. So. Anything else you got as far as the radon?
Yeah, and really just from a real estate transaction standpoint, we just recommend, if you can, obviously timing is everything in real estate, but we do recommend, if a home does need to be mitigated, it always seems like we get people calling us up. It's, the 20th, we had 3 of them this week. We need it done before the 1st. Well, some things to take into consideration. It depends on the type of loan that you have, but some types of loans do require you to have the post test, and what the post test is, if you're not familiar with that, is after the system's installed, you have to retest. Just because the system is functioning doesn't necessarily mean that the radon levels have been reduced below the 4.0. And so you have to retest. So when we install a system, we actually leave a machine in the home, and it's set on a 48-hour delay. That allows the air in the home to come to equilibrium, and then it runs for 48 hours. So we really need about, and a lot of times with weekends and stuff, if we do a mitigation on a Tuesday, Wednesday, we're not picking up till the following Monday. So most mitigation companies out there are typically about a week out or so, 1 to 2 weeks out for install. And then obviously you got to take into account the post mitigation testing and stuff. So, the sooner that you can plan for that, then you don't run into trouble of possibly pushing out those closing dates.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, radon's important. So appreciate you jumping on with us, Jim. So yeah, if anybody has any further questions, you can reach out to Jim, and I'll show you here. He's here we go, screen. So they have the Radon Pros Facebook page, as well as at radonpros.com. So you kind of have radon facts here, just kind of what is radon, kind of gets, if you want more information, you can reach out to Jim, or you can reach out to us. We can put you in contact with Jim. Talks about testing, mitigation, radon facts, all that kind of fun stuff, and educate yourself. So that's a goal, at Champions Real Estate Team. Our goal is to educate our clients as much as possible so they can make the best decision possible for them, themselves in that buying or selling transaction aspect of it. So with that, appreciate Jim and Russ jumping on and giving us the insight on what the market's doing. Russ and Jim, appreciate you joining us and talking about radon and giving us a little bit more information to help clear up some things and answer some questions people may have. As always, if you have any questions regarding real estate, give us a holler, reach out to us on Facebook or our website at championsrealestateteam.com. I'm happy to help you as we do anything. Also, what we have coming up May 28th, so next Thursday, 7 to 8 o'clock, we are doing a home buyers seminar, basically as we're doing it now, like how we're doing the Facebook Live via Zoom. Probably about an hour or so, but that's live interactive, or you can watch it at a later date, but we'll kind of talk on what you need to know when you're buying and selling a house in today's market, with things going on with COVID-19, what the mortgage industry is doing and all that good stuff. So just kind of get you, like we said, coach you up, get you as much information as possible so that you can make that right decision for you and your family. And appreciate you joining us, and have a great Memorial Day. Have a great holiday. Be safe. And thank you very much, guys. And we will talk to you all soon.